So allow me now to introduce you to our moderator, Kiana Barber, who will take over right now to the end. So Sister Kiana, the floor is yours as you moderate this session this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivier. Good morning, everyone. As Mr. Kamanzi said, we are here for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Implementation Summit, and we'll be talking about opportunities and challenges. I am excited to be here on behalf of the Africa Global Chamber of Commerce, who has organized an amazing group of leaders today that are directly involved with the Afcfta. So we'll have a very robust and powerful discussion about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is also known and will be mentioned throughout as the Afcfta, which created a free trade area agreement between all 55 African nations. It was signed in 2018 and implementation began in January 2021 of this year. We're here to discuss the last 8 months. What's happened? What are some of the integral things that have happened? What have been some of the successes? And honestly, what have been some of the challenges? Again, I'm excited. This is a very powerful group that is right here before us. And we have an opportunity to not only hear directly what's going on in Africa, but to really talk about how we can be involved. What are some of the opportunities and how we can all work together to overcome some of the challenges that may exist. Our speakers, again, play a very pivotal role in moving the Afcfta forward. Each speaker will have a special presentation. So I want everybody to take out their notes and their pen and pad because this is going to be a very robust learning session. Everyone will have a special presentation to talk about the agreement and where they actually fit in the agreement. To outline a little bit more, we'll start with opening remarks from the chairman of the Africa Global Chamber of Commerce, Olivier Kamanzi, followed by an overview of Afcfta from our guest speaker, Mr. Prudence Sabahizi, the head of Chief Technical Advisor for Afcfta. And then we will have our keynote for today, the ambassador to the U.S. South African Embassy, Her Excellency, Noma Kathleen Mfekito, who will be discussing the implementation of the Afcfta and trade between South Africa and the United States. This will be followed by 2 special presentations. We're going to focus on East and West Africa. First, we will hear from the associate for Mr. Famin Touré, the president of the Federation of West African Chambers of Commerce and Industry. He will discuss opportunities and challenges in West African states, followed by John Bosco Kalisa, the executive director and CEO of Africa Business Council, who will discuss challenges in the East African region. As you can see, as I just mentioned, this will be a very robust conversation. We want it to be interactive. So along the way, I'm moderating the conversation. We love commentary, questions. Please send us your questions along the way. After the presentation, we will have a full Q&A session. So you'll be able to answer the direct burning questions that you may have. So again, let's keep this conversational. We're here. I didn't mention I'm a board member for the Chamber of Commerce. And our entire goal is always about how do we make the conversations easier? How do we bridge the gaps and the connections to make sure that the challenges that as me as a small business owner in the US have, or the challenges I may have with doing business in Africa. We want to break down those barriers. We want to ask the right questions so we can all begin to work together and create a more flourishing Africa. So with that, I will open up this discussion with opening remarks from Olivier Kamanzi, who is the capital markets expert, international finance sector development consultant, and co-founder and chairman of the Africa Global Chamber of Commerce, which is headquartered in Chicago. Mr. Kamanzi is also the founder of and CEO of Globrock Group, a holding company in financial management and global management, which has subsidiaries in US and Africa. He is the former CEO and Capital Market Authority for Rwanda and is the founder of the Olivier Kamanzi Foundation. Mr. Kamanzi assisted in the establishment of the Rwanda capital markets industry and the creation of the Rwanda Stock Exchange. He initiated different policies, including the East Africa Regional Financial Market, infrastructure development, and the capital markets harmonization and integration. He assisted in the development and implementation of the East African Central Depository Systems for Securities and the Securities Industry Training Institute. He has a doctorate of philosophy in leadership and entrepreneurship with a specialization in entrepreneurship and innovation. And he also holds an MBA in finance. As you can hear by his bio, Mr. Kamanzi is brilliant. He is an expert when it comes to everything financial markets from a global perspective, and we are excited to have opening remarks from him.
Thank you so much. Those wonderful words, my dear sister Kiana. I really appreciate you. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much for moderating this session this morning. Once again, all protocol observed. Today, we are here to learn from the African Union, the African government, the private sector officials on the continental, to share with us after 8 months since its implementation. So to see how the progress, or how far have we achieved? How has COVID-19 has affected its implementation? We want to see the impact on also the bilateral agreements that exist in the areas. We want to know whether the ESC or ECOWAS vision align with the collective vision of the continent. So in brief, we want to learn Africa Afcfta implementation, trade opportunities and the challenges both at the African continental level and the US level. The purpose of this summit is really to engage all stakeholders, as mentioned before, above, and the American audience to discuss ways and the means to boost the trade between African countries or intra-trade, and the trade between Africa and the United States of America. The Continental Free Trade Area, or Afcfta, is the world's largest trade area, covering 55 countries and the market of estimated of 1.3 billion people, with an estimated of 3.5 trillion GDP. I believe that Afcfta effective implementation and the strong 400 million African youth population can be enablers to bring to bright economic and the future of Africa and drive sustainable education, health, social, economic, and the political development. I believe that a proper and effective Afcfta implementation can help to transform Africa. 7 years ago, a group of African diaspora came together to create African Global Chamber of Commerce, or EGCC, with a mission to promote trade, investment, education, and the cultural exchanges between Africa and the American and a global market. Today, the Chamber operates in 47 sub-Saharan African countries through agreements signed with various African government trade and investment promotion agencies, Chamber of Commerce such as FEWASI, or Federation of West African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I take this opportunity to really thank my good brother, the CEO of FEWASI, Mr. Akadiri, Aminu Akadiri. With you, we have been working together within 15 countries within ECOWAS, really to work together. Many times we organize this kind of sessions together. I believe last year we organized how ECOWAS region can boost the trade with the United States of America. We continue to really to host this kind of events to really to market Africa, to really bring Africa to the world. The products of what we produce in Africa should be able to be on the US market and on the global market. That's what the Chamber is here about. We really make sure we promote the exports of African products to the continent of America and globally. Also, we make sure we connect, we invite American and global investors to look into African markets and so on and so forth. So we have various programs. We have an entrepreneurship program for the youth and the women. Every year we host here in Chicago 30 women entrepreneurs through the State Department. The program is called WEP, or Women Entrepreneurship Program. Also, we host every year the program empowering young African youth and the American youth. We connect them through the exchanges. So we have various programs, trade missions. we have taken a couple of trade missions to the continent, bringing American investors to look into the African opportunities. I invite African and US companies to take advantage of the opportunities offered by Afcfta and the other US and African policies and initiatives, such as AGOA. The Africa export products can reach US market tax duty free. The Power Africa Initiative or Electrify Africa Act, Prosper Africa Build Act. Those are the policies only in the US, which African companies can take advantage of it. We are part of those initiatives, those policies, we can facilitate. The last one will be Mandela Washington Fellows for Young African Leaders Initiatives, where African has been, AGCC, our chamber has been involved since the beginning, since the foundation of the YADI program. We continue to mentor the young people, to empower African young people, connecting to all the American audience. Also, we call African government and the private sector's communities to work together to address all challenges for effective implementation of Africa Continental Free Trade Area. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to declare these Afcfta implementation, trade opportunities, and the challenges summit open. I wish you all, attendees and panelists, of course, a fruitful conversation and deliberation. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Olivier, for those powerful words. And that is why I am a part of the Africa Global Chamber of Commerce, for the big mission and for you reaching out and understanding that these relationships needed to happen. So I thank you. I'm an excited person. I'm an appreciative person, which we all should be, because nobody has to take the time. So on that note, we will start with our first guest speaker, who will do an overview of the Afcfta. Mr. Prudence Sehabizi, who is the Chief Technical Advisor on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and head of the Afcfta Negotiation Support Unit, which based in the Department of Trade and Industry, African Union Commission. He provides technical and strategic advice to the Afcfta Negotiations Institution, as well as to the Commissioners for Trade and Industry. He's the overall coordinator also for the Afcfta negotiation and coordinates a team of senior experts and advisors on various issues. His past experience includes working for the government of Rwanda for more than 10 years in the areas of international trade and regional integration, and as Rwanda's chief negotiator to the negotiations of the EAC Common Market Portal in 2006. He was at the center of Rwanda's ascension to the East African Community, EAC, and he advised the government of Rwanda on regional integration while working with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Office of the President, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. On that note, we would like to welcome the master negotiator, I will call you, Mr. Prudence Sehabizi.
Thank you very much, Kiana, for that very interesting introduction. Let me start by greeting everyone, depending on where we are here. It is in the afternoon. Some of you, it is still in the morning. Good morning. I also greet my colleagues who are on the panel. All of you are familiar and friends of me. Your Excellency Ambassador, my greetings to you as well. Let me start by this introduction. I would like to first appreciate the initiative by the chairman of Africa Global Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Olivier Kamanzi, for putting together this wonderful summit to discuss the implementation opportunities of the Afcfta and the challenges associated to it. I also recognize each and everyone who will contribute to the content of this brilliant summit. The Afcfta aims at the easing the flow of goods and services across national borders in Africa. And as you said, you rightly said it, it is a market that is shared by 55 African countries. And all of them are committed to eliminate tariff and non-tariff barriers on trade goods, as well as facilitate the movement of services across the continent and facilitate investment across the continent. So looking at the objective of the Afcfta itself, it is very clear that Afcfta is a big opportunity for the continent. We know everyone has been affected by COVID-19 pandemic, but within the Afcfta, we see it as an opportunity. It is expected that the Afcfta will contribute to quick economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And this will be done, of course, through liberalization of trade goods and trade services, which shall have to play a key role in overcoming the pandemic and its limiting impact in the following ways. For example, the Afcfta is going to provide access to essential medical goods by opening up borders. People will have access to essential medical goods, including material and inputs for the production of those medical goods. Of course, services that also help to contain the pandemic and treat the people who are affected by the pandemic will also have to be liberalized through the Afcfta process. If we contain the pandemic as a continent, it is much easier as leaving it to each and every country to struggle on its own. The Afcfta, of course, will also ensure access to food throughout the continent. I will come into the details later. It will provide farmers with necessary inputs for their production. It will support job creation and maintain economic activities in the face of the global economic recession. And substantial disruption to regional and global value chains that have been caused by the COVID pandemic have reduced employment and has increased poverty on the continent. So the Afcfta will play a role in the economic recovery of the continent. We have a number of reforms that we are proposing to national governments that will make sure that the Afcfta contribute to reducing the cost of production, reducing the cost of doing business, reducing tax and administrative burdens on importers and exporters, reducing the cost of food and other products which are heavily consumed by the poor, and then contribute, of course, to limiting the negative impact of the COVID-19 and the crisis that is resulting from the Afcfta. So I just want to give you this introduction to say that the Afcfta is going to play a very strategic role in facilitating the rapid recovery, the structural transformation on the continent, and supporting sustainable development in Africa by building resilience and resilience of our economies. Let me quickly highlight some of the key opportunities that are offered by the Afcfta. First of all, the Afcfta, when it is properly implemented, is going to boost growth in general. It's going to reduce poverty, and it is also going to broaden our economic inclusion within the continent. It, of course, provides an opportunity for African countries to competitively integrate into the global economy by reducing poverty and promoting inclusion. And the Afcfta will contribute to the welfare gains of the consumers, It will also attract investment and create jobs across the continent and ensure income distribution. How will the Afcfta contribute to the consumers' welfare gains? In a nutshell, consumers will have limitless choice of the quality products because the Afcfta is going to reduce the cost of trading. Then the prices of products that will be crossing borders are going to go down, and consumers will have a wide range of choices. And at the same time, the Afcfta rules, especially rules on standards, are going to ensure that the quality of products that are traded within the market is a high quality product which will respond to the satisfaction of the consumers. And the Afcfta is going to attract investment from within the continent and also investment from outside the continent. So the legal framework of the Afcfta provides for a protocol on investment that will set the rules and regulations for investment facilitation. And this protocol is being negotiated. It can be finalized in the next few months. But even before the protocol on investment is finalized, there is already a protocol on trading services that is already in force, that has been negotiated and concluded. And it also has provisions to facilitate investment across the continent and ensure the free movement of service providers across the continent. The Afcfta is going to contribute to job creation. And how will this be done? We believe that Afcfta is going to promote industrialization. And if we industrialize the continent, we are going to develop our regional and continental value chains, and we are going to contribute to job creation across the continent. In the process of implementing the Afcfta, we are identifying the key priority value chains that Africa can capitalize on during the implementation process. We are looking at automotive industry, pharmaceuticals, processed food, transportation, and logistics. And each of those proposed value chain is going to have a very significant impact. If you know that Africa has more than 60% of the world arable land, and yet it remains the net importer of food, then you understand that there is a missing link. There's a missing link because you cannot have arable land, you cannot have all resources, and then you still import food. So Africa has opportunities to invest in food production. Let me use the example of auto value chains to see how Afcfta offers opportunities for investors. First of all, Africa has significant imports of vehicles and automotive parts, which constitute about 40 billion US dollar. And 9% of the continent imports from outside of Africa is import of vehicles. Looking at that volume of import of cars, Africa is also exporting the same products. Africa is exporting about 17 billion US dollar of cars, which now show that there is a potential. We are producing cars, exporting them, but yet we are importing a big amount of cars than the ones we are exporting. So which means that there is still a market available on the continent if we invest heavily in the automotive industry. Again, we know that Africa currently is trading on a larger scale in terms of the parts of cars. So which means that if we start producing our own cars on the continent, for the continent, then it will create an opportunity for those who are involved in the production of auto parts industry. The African automotive sector, we can say that has to change because the current status is not favoring Africa. We have to make sure that we produce our own automotive goods, and we have to make sure that Africa is producing what it needs. Currently, Africa has the lowest level of motorization compared to other parts of the world, where you have like for each, let's say the case of East Asia, for each 1,000 people, you have more than 100 cars. But in Africa, for each 1,000 people, you have less than 40 vehicles. So it means there is still a gap that has to be filled in terms of production of cars. So we have to make sure that we change that structure of production of cars, which of course is holding back our industrialization, our technology, and our skills development. It also restricts our key industrial activity with which the automotive parts or componentry is about. And we believe that Africa cannot remain a global dumping ground for pre-owned vehicles. So the Afcfta provides an opportunity to implement a strategy that will promote production of vehicles. Let me quickly explain again how the Afcfta implementation will contribute to eliminating poverty in Africa. The recent World Bank study has estimated that Afcfta will boost Africa's GDP by 7%, which is equivalent to almost $450 billion by the year 2035. And this is going to be done in part by reducing import tariffs, but also by eliminating non-tariff barriers. So if the Afcfta is implemented fully, it is going to lift about 30 million Africans out of extreme poverty and another 68 million out of moderate poverty. So in total, the Afcfta can lift about 100 million people out of poverty in Africa. So this is a big promise. We just have to make sure that it becomes a reality. Another aspect that is important to understand for the Afcfta is that it's going to contribute to income distribution. Apart from lifting a significant number of people out of poverty, the Afcfta will bridge the salary gaps between men and women, which will ensure the equitable distribution of incomes between women and men. But it will also ensure increase of wages for unskilled labor, which is again is going to bridge the income gap between skilled and unskilled workers. And all those assumptions are supported by statistics which have been studied by the World Bank very recently. And the reason behind is that Afcfta is going to create opportunities in sectors that employ most some of those categories of people who have been marginalized in the past. Afcfta will open up opportunities for women in sectors where they are more employed currently. Afcfta will open up opportunities for sectors where most African unskilled workers are employed currently. So the Afcfta is going to be seen as an opportunity to bridge the income gap among skilled and unskilled labor, among women and men. But also the small-scale cross-border traders are going to benefit much from the Afcfta. We know that more than 60% of Africa's trade is expressed in terms of cross-border trade, and most of the cross-border traders work informally. So the Afcfta is going to address most of the challenges that they face and then open up more opportunities for them to trade formally and benefit from the larger market. Without further ado, I would like to quickly update you that the current status of implementation of the Afcfta is that we have got about 40 countries that have ratified the agreement. 40 countries out of 55, they are already implementing the Afcfta. Others that have not ratified yet will come on board as soon as possible. They are in the process. A number of legal instruments have been concluded. It is only a few protocols that are being developed, but the key protocols on trading goods, trading services, dispute settlement have already been concluded and have entered into force. So we are looking to have protocols on investment, intellectual property rights, competition, e-commerce, and women in trade. Those are additional instruments that are being developed to complement the current Afcfta legal framework. So having said that, I would like to mention that Africa has many challenges, but we believe that if we implement Afcfta seriously, we are going to overcome those challenges. And most of those challenges are related to the fragmentation of the market. They are related to the cost of doing business across Africa, and they are related to inadequate structures and systems that are within the African countries' legal framework, and Afcfta is going to correct all those inefficiencies and ensure a very successful market. So that is what I want to share with you at the outset to allow other speakers to go deeper into details, and then later on we can come in if there is any question that is raised by the audience. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Let me yield the floor back to the Director of Ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Sebahizi. That was a very thorough overview. I thank you for identifying those opportunities so clearly. It's very easy for us to understand where things are at and what some of those opportunities are. And that's a very powerful statement, 100 million people lifted out of poverty. That is a very powerful statement. So I thank you for that. I will turn it over to Mr. Kamanzi, who is going to introduce our honorable speaker, keynote speaker for today. You're on mute, Mr. Kamanzi.
Okay. I think I'm okay now. Okay. Thank you so much, Kiana. And something you bear with me, I may have missed to introduce you properly. So to audience or those who just arrived, Mr. Kiana, first of all, let me introduce you before I can bring our special keynote speaker of today. So Kiana Barber is the president, the founder of WDB Marketing, based here in Chicago. She's a woman who brings all women here in the state of Illinois together that are involved in business. She's a powerful house here in Chicago in terms of mobilizing Black businesses. Really, she's doing an amazing job in really mobilizing all Black businesses in Chicago. She's pro-Black businesses owned. And also she's a board member of Africa Global Chamber of Commerce. And if anyone wants to do marketing, promotion, branding, everything, this is your girl. Thank you, Kiana, the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Now allow me to really introduce the wonderful person happened to meet Her Excellency Noma Catherine Feketo, who is South African ambassador to the United States since 2020. Social justice and the brutality of the apartheid system motivated her to enter into active politics at the tender age of 23 years old. Noma played a critical role in the post-1976 family support of detained students, leading to active engagement with a number of non-governmental organizations including the Agricultural Training NGO ZAC, the Social Change Assistance Trust, and the Development Action Group, focused mainly on a public housing project. Excellency Fitketo served as South Africa's Minister of Human Settlements between 2018 and 2019, and the Deputy Minister of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation between 2014 and 2018, a role in which he worked closely on the Palestinian questions, the Middle East peace and the process, and the BRICS. Excellency Ambassador has had an extensive career with the South African government and has served as the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament in South Africa's 4th Parliament and the first Black woman mayor of the city of Cape Town. Norma has an extensive understanding and experience of South Africa's transition to a multi-party democracy in 1994, and they played a critical role within the conflict resolution negotiations between 1993 and 1996. Excellency Ambassador has been a member of the ANC National Executive Committee, NEC, since 2007 to date, and serves on the National Working Committee. She has interest in social justice issues and the alleviation of poverty in South Africa. Norma attended high school in Cape Town, South Africa, and he was awarded numerous awards. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our today keynote speaker, Ambassador, Your Excellency, Ambassador of South Africa to the United States. The floor is yours.
Wow. No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kamanzi. Let me start with my sister, Kiana, moderator here. I'm happy to be here with you. And I know there are lots of people who, when we talk about trade and that, who come to my office, and I always ask one question: where are the women? Now I've found the leader of those women. I'm quite grateful that I'm here. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observe. Good morning to those joining us from here in the United States, and good afternoon to those participating from the continent. Thank you, Mr. Kamazi, for the kind introduction, and also for the invitation to address this important event about the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, opportunities and challenges. In my address today, I would like to make remarks on the following topics or issues: the journey that Africa has traveled towards an integrated continent through Afcfta, importance of inclusion of women, youth, people in disability, and SMEs in trade, opportunities offered by Afcfta, and the importance of diaspora investing into the continent, and how the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, can complement the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Through the Lagos Plan of Action for Economic Development of Africa, and also the Abuja Treaty under then Organization of African Unity, OAU, our heads of states and government confirmed the importance of promoting collective self-reliant and self-sustaining development, as well as economic integration. It has been a vision of our forefathers in the continent to see Africa integrated and working towards African Economic Community. The immediate priority then was to create and strengthen regional economic communities in the continent as building blocks towards Africa integration. Today, we have strong RECs in different parts of the continent, SADC in South Africa, EAC in East Africa, ECOWAS in West Africa, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, set out 7 aspirations. Aspiration 2 calls for an integrated continent, politically united and based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision of Africa's Renaissance. This aimed to accelerate progress towards continental unity and integration. The African Continental Free Trade Area became one of the flagship projects under Agenda 2063, with a view to both boost intra-Africa trade. It was with pleasure to see our heads of states and government sitting in Johannesburg in June 2015 to launch the negotiations towards Afcfta. This, of course, coincided with my term serving as a Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation in South Africa. Less than 3 years later, in March 2018, the AU heads of states adopted the legal instrument establishing the Afcfta, which formally entered into force on 30th of May 2019, becoming the largest free trade area in the world. Finally, by 1st January 2021, marked start of trading under Afcfta. In less than 6 years, Africa has moved from the idea of Afcfta to negotiating and concluding the agreement, now implementation. We are confident that as Afcfta Secretariat, under the leadership of His Excellency Wamkele Mene, will continue to drive implementation of the Afcfta to make sure that all Africans benefit from this agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, the only way to lift our people in the continent out of the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, as well as our nations of underdevelopment, is through opportunities created by trade. And in this regard, it is important that businesses owned by women, youth, people with disability, and SMEs also benefit from the Afcfta. I understand that the Afcfta Secretariat is working with partners to come up with trade finance for SMEs, which will really ensure that the benefits of Afcfta are inclusive and accrues to all people in the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, the Afcfta should be seen as the market integration pillar of the broader development integration agenda, resulting in reduction of tariffs and harmonization of standards to promote intra-Africa trade. Trade integration must be accompanied by cooperation to overcome infrastructure backlogs and economic diversification, including industrial development. Research estimates that African countries imported over 500 billion US dollars worth of goods in 2019, but only 68 billion US dollars came from other African countries. Therefore, lowering of trade barriers through reduction of tariffs under the Afcfta presents a massive opportunity for African industries and for development across the continent. The key imports of other African countries from outside the continent represent growth areas for African-based producers, including refined oil, automotive, agro-processing, TFL, iron and steel, as well as plastics and pharmaceutical, and in investment in services sector of telecoms, retail, banking, and e-commerce. This implies that companies based in the United States can invest in the continent to take advantage of these opportunities. In this regard, I would like to encourage US companies, in particular members of the sixth region of the continent, the diaspora, to consider strongly investing in the continent. We know that members of the diaspora here in the US are involved in various activities such as equity capital, manufacturing, technological innovation, etc. Come and take advantage of these exciting opportunities in Africa. As you know, some of the growing countries are found in the continent. Through the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, companies investing in sub-Saharan Africa will be able to export their products duty-free, quota-free to the United States. Among other countries, such as Economic Partnership Agreement with European Union and GSP programs with countries such as Russia, Japan, etc. Therefore, in addition to the African market of 1.2 billion people, you can also export to many countries globally through trade agreement that we are part of. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, African countries have reformed their economies to receive foreign investment. The rule of law is prevailing and investors are protected. Therefore, come and invest. For South Africa, as you may have seen on your television screens, in July we had unrest, in particular in some areas in the provinces of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, where we experienced violence and damage to property. The police moved swiftly to arrest those at heart of the attempt to undermine our democracy. We are a country of democracy and the rule of law. Therefore, it is fitting that those who try to undermine our democracy will now face justice. Calm has returned and situation stabilized. We are now working towards providing relief, supporting our recovery and rebuilding our country. And with regard to COVID-19, we have had 2.6 million infected people with COVID-19 and around 78,000 people dying from the pandemic. More than 4 million received their vaccines, and we are currently administering Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson vaccines currently. The Johnson & Johnson is produced in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa by the company Aspen for the African continent. There are currently plans for South Africa company BioVac Institute to start producing Pfizer vaccines. The United States have also been kind, donating over 5.7 million doses of vaccines to South Africa. Our borders are open to those wishing to visit South Africa, subject, of course, to providing a negative certificate on arrival. And once again, thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts here. Those interested in doing business with South Africa, please feel free to reach out to me or the embassy. We aim to provide a one-stop shop for investors wishing to invest in South Africa, and also to importers, buyers, and distributors wishing to import products from South Africa. We connect you to relevant agencies or suppliers and save you time and money. I want to take this opportunity, Mr. President Kamanzi, to thank you for inviting me to this wonderful summit, a summit that we can see from what has been said already will put the continent into such a high level. And I'm sure this would not be the last time inviting me here, but you know, I would also work with this organization. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Your Excellency. I don't know if you wanted to say anything, Olivier, but
thank you.
That was so powerful. And thank you. And I appreciate you acknowledging the role that you want to see women and youth and small businesses play. So I thank you so much. I want you to know, as Olivier said, I have a field of women that look like me that we would love to help you with the vision. There are a lot of people here, a lot of businesses and Black-owned businesses I'm very passionate about. That is definitely time for us to reconnect to Africa and invest. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Like, we need to invest, not take away, but actually add back to the continent to get the Africa that we all want. One takeaway from me was just that stat about the amount that's imported from the US, which was 500 billion. And from African country to African country, it's only 68 billion. So that's a huge deficit. Even though we're in the US, we definitely know that Africa needs to be able to support itself so we can create those jobs and opportunities. So that was very powerful. Before we get to our next presentation, I just want to encourage everybody who is viewing to definitely interact. As you see, you have the people that are literally at the forefront, you know, of the Afcfta. So if you have questions, if you have commentary, please include it now, include it in the Q&A. We will, at the end of the presentations, have Q&A, but keep engaged. This is very powerful. And these are people, again, at the forefront. Our Excellency just offered resources if you want to work in South Africa. That's a huge opportunity, and we thank you for that. And you should never take it lightly when you have someone who can directly work with you, and make sure, like you said, that you don't have to deal with some of those challenges just doing it on your own. Next, we are going to talk about the East Africa region. So we're going to focus on the implementation and challenges in the East African region. And we have Mr. Amunu Akadiri on behalf of Famin Toure, who is the President and Federation of West Africa Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FEWACCI. And they're going to present and talk about the East Africa region. His presentation will be in French as well as his bio. So I will allow him to introduce himself, but don't worry, there will be an English translation at the end. So please stay put for the presentation and he will do an English translation at the end. So without further ado.
Thank you very much, my sister Baba. No, don't worry, I will make the speech in English. My dear brother Oliver Kamanzi, President of Africa Global Chambers of Commerce. My brother Prudence Sebahizi from Africa Union Trade and Industry Department in charge of CFTA. Her Excellency, Mrs. Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, let me stand on the existing protocol to deliver my president, Mr. Famoture message, who could not participate on this workshop because of some last commitment with the government in his country. He presents to all of you his apology for not being able to be here today. So the president of FEWASI message is like this. On behalf of the Federation of West African Chambers of Commerce and Industry, I would like to congratulate the president of Africa Global Chambers of Commerce for initiating this interactive exchange session on the business opportunities that arise from the implementation of African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Afcfta. The implementation of Afcfta with the opening of markets should be an opportunity for Africa to move toward faster and more sustainable growth. Unfortunately, the global economy is still facing the new variants of the COVID-19 pandemic that continue to hinder the smooth running of business activity around the world. We will now have to learn to live with this pandemic by respecting barrier gesture and by vaccinating ourselves when it is necessary to protect ourselves, protect our loved ones, and protect our business. Ladies and gentlemen, the CFTA is advancing in its stage and gaining popularity across Africa and the world. So it is necessary for public and private stakeholders to identify their roles in order to ensure its success. And that is why a meeting on this nature is very important for us at Chambers of Commerce and Industry. In line with the FEWASI's mandate and the role as a consultative platform to provide private sector view and proposal on all ECOWAS action and decision that's contributing to deepening regional and continental economic integration, and also our responsibility for providing private sector actors with up-to-date information for their ease of access to the market and investment. We have engaged in various awareness-raising activity and program to prepare the private sector in our region to understand our role in CFTA, understand private sector role in CFTA, and seize the business opportunity that accompany it. Given to our geographical scope and our familiarity with the various economic integration program of ECOWAS and the African Union, FEWASI wish to assure investors interested in Africa of our commitment and willingness to work with them in joint venture or co-investment to take advantage of the enormous potential in terms of human resources and the mining and agricultural resources contained in that we have in our continent. Indeed, collectively, the 15 ECOWAS member states with a population of nearly 500 million inhabitants are richly endowed with natural, agricultural, and mineral resources, as well as a young and abundant workforce that are real business opportunity for the economic development of an Africa that we all want. For example, in Côte d'Ivoire, my present country, the world's largest producer and exporter of cocoa beans and a major producer of exporter of coffee, cotton, cashew nut, and palm oil, it is highly dependent on agriculture and the related activities, which employ about 2/3 of the population. In recent time, Côte d'Ivoire's economic growth can be attributed to its flourishing agriculture, services, and industry, as well as the inflows of foreign direct investment. Côte d'Ivoire has several types of agricultural land and a climate that allow the development of a wide range of agro-industrial and food products in high demand around the world. In addition to Côte d'Ivoire, the other West African countries such as Ghana Senegal, and Nigeria together constitute the bridgeheads of the region economic activity and concentrate 87% of trade in the region. However, these resources are exported for most of the time without any primary transformation. The entry into force of the CFTA and the serious impacts of COVID-19 on public health and the economic in general should serve as a wake-up call and encourage us to engage potential investors interested in Africa in another way of doing business. So we have to interest them in another way of doing business by creating joint venture, joint investment in key sector of the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the CFTA offers us the opportunity to create processing units in joint venture to produce for our own consumption in Africa and also export, for example, to United States of America, that offer us legal export facility under the AGOA Act. Her Excellency talked in her speech how people can invest in South Africa, but not only in South Africa, how people can invest in Africa, taking into account the opportunity offered by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. It is time to invest in West Africa, or to invest in Africa. Since we are talking about all the Africa, it is time to invest in all Africa entities. Now you have to invest in Africa. You have to come in Africa now to set up your company with us to try to produce for us here and export in other regions in the world. And we at Afcfta, we are ready. We are also ready in any chambers of commerce in our member states to offer the necessary information and support you in your decision to invest with us in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellency, this is the message Mr. Toure invite me to deliver to you this afternoon. And once again, he apology for not being here with you. And thank you very much, Mr. Oliver Kamanzi, for inviting us to join this platform. I'm available to answer on any question that you will need for joining us here. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mrs. Kina Baba.
Thank you, Mr. Akadiri. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for the English translation. So I think I may have misspoke, but it is West Africa, of course, that you were speaking on. So thank you for that. And it's just very refreshing to know, again, like you said, that you all are ready for us to invest, and you all are welcoming everyone to come and invest in West Africa. So I hope we definitely have some great questions for you. And now we will go to the East Africa region and talk about unique and specific opportunities for that area, challenges and opportunities as well. And we have Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, who is the Executive Director and the CEO of the Africa Business Council. He is an expert in international trade policy, law, and economics, and has an extensive background in promoting private sector development. And Mr. Kalisa, again, will speak on the East Africa region and the specific opportunities. So I will turn it over to you now, Mr. Kalisa.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Baba. And I want also to join my colleagues thanking Olivia Kamanzi for organizing this excellent event. I also want to appreciate the support from our Secretariat, represented by Prudence Sebahizi, and our ambassador, very strong ambassador, who has a strong passion and interest in promoting Africa. It is indeed my pleasure and an honor to join this exciting panel, talking about the opportunities of CFTA, Continental Free Trade Area. I think Prudence did justice to give a background in terms of the benefits to the private sector. And it is true. The private sector is the engine and the motor of the development. Once you put the private sector on the driving seat, it means you would be able to address issues of poverty, issues of inequality, issues of job creation. Africa, I would say, it is a very lucky continent because we have a young population. Generally, when we look at the data, especially from East Africa, the driver of our growth is mainly driven by the young population, what we call private consumption. It is the driver of our growth. And when you look at the sector that are igniting or supporting the growth, these are sectors where youth innovation is playing a critical role. We are talking about horticulture sector. We are talking about agribusiness. We are talking about industrial sector. Generally, before COVID, East Africa was the fastest growing economies in Africa. Mentioned Rwanda was recording 8% GDP growth. Tanzania was elevated from a low-income country to a middle-income status. Look at the Kenya, look at the Uganda, all the countries. They are on the right track in terms of the transformation, the economic transformation, or the Africa we want. So the Africa we want that is embedded under CFTA is driven by private sector, is driven by youth, is driven by women. So let me quickly, I don't want to go into the numbers because as I mentioned, Prudence did justice to the opportunities in terms of population, 1.3 billion, and we will be growing to 1.7 billion in 2030. But a key important aspect is the growth of intra-Africa trade from the current level of 17% to 52%. If it was not COVID, we had anticipated that by 2025, we would be able to double intra-Africa trade. By doubling that means that we would be able to dismantle all the tariff and non-tariff barriers that hinder our trade. And the actions are in our hands. Actions to do that would be in our hand. And I want again to echo my appreciation and applaud the Secretariat in terms of negotiating this agreement. When you look at it, when you look at these 7 principles, trade policy, trade facilitation, trade information, enhancing productive capacities, ensuring factor movement of labor, promotion of service sector. When you look at the East Africa, we had already identified what are the driver in terms of service sector. These include financial services, and those sectors are recording or registering a double-digit growth. We are looking at transport and logistics services. We are looking at the professional services. We have a comparative advantage, as I mentioned, with our youth. They are well educated. They are generally, when you look at the data, 23% of the youth in East Africa, they create their own employment. They do create their own employment. They are not job seekers, they are job creators. That shows the opportunity we have. Of course, we are looking at the key sectors, as my brother Prudence mentioned. What are the key growth sectors? What can we do? Generally from East Africa, what COVID has taught us, what I would call a silver lining opportunity, is that we have our regional value chain are very resilient. And in order to build back, we need to strengthen our regional value chain. And that is an opportunity. Those value chain include textile and apparel, where we've been benefiting and working closely with the US and AGOA, and that is an opportunity. We're also looking at the leather and leather industries. We have a big population of animals, and that is a sector that has an enormous opportunity. We are looking at the agribusiness. Agribusiness, East African has the potential to feed itself. Generally, this week I had a session with the USAID where they did analysis on what we call natural capital. Natural capital we have. And you find that almost 50% of our land is a very productive land. So we shouldn't be talking about food insecurity. We should be generally providing surplus to the other region in terms of food. We should be self-sufficient in terms of food when we address these binding constraints. The issues related, when I talk about the constraints, there are some constraints that are supply side related constraints, issues of productivity. And when we talk about the issue of productivity, we're talking about access to finance. Our capital is impatient capital. We don't have patient capital. And that has hindered the development of key sectors in our economy. Even when we talk about building back or building, we need to address issues related to trade finance. Trade finance has been a key constraint in our growth. And we need to have a concerted effort in terms of attracting affordable finance in the region. The issue of the energy cost is still high for our industrial development. We need to address the cost of energy. We need also to look at how we address logistics related issues. When you look at the data, it is still costly for Africa, especially even in East Africa, to move a 20-foot container from the port to the inland, to our inland areas, to the inland depot. While we've, at the ESC, we've made a positive stride in terms of deepening our regional integration, customs, but we still have some challenges, again, related to non-tariff barriers, which we need to work on to ensure that there is a smooth, seamless flow of goods and services across our region. So there is a potential in terms of building synergies and complementarities. Generally, when you look at the why intra-regional trade is low, the issue is that we've been competing and competing in an effective way. So I'm happy that Prudence and the team will be working on the competition policy to ensure that the mergers, the monopolies, and other behavior that are not creating a level playing field are able to be checked and addressed. So while again, CFTA provides enormous opportunity in terms of growing intra-regional trade from the current level of 17 to 52.7% by 2030. We still have some big challenge, and I'm happy that at the ESC level, so far 4 out of 6 countries have ratified. Among the numbers Prudence mentioned, our region has made a positive stride in terms of ratification. That demonstrates the commitment of our government in terms of driving the agenda of Africa we want. So there is that political will, there is that political commitment, and that commitment is also being supported supported by the private sector. So our private sector are ready to embrace and support the CFTA, as long as some of the binding constraints, including issues of standards, standards harmonization. I was looking at the number, when we look at the standard and SPS harmonization, we are still at around 13%. And you cannot trade without harmonization of standards. Look at the rules of origin. We still have issues in terms of rules of origin. We still have issues in terms of customs cooperation. How customs, if I move goods from East Africa to West Africa, what are the mechanisms in place to ensure that the goods in East Africa comply to the West African customs regulations? While the agreement, the framework is very clear, is very perfect, but there are still what I call intrinsic issues that we need to put across as a private sector to ensure that those issues are addressed. Let me quickly, I don't want to take much of your time. Let me quickly give you some of the survey we did with UNECA recently. And we did a survey among our company and we say, what are the issues? Of course, overall, the farms we interviewed, we surveyed, they appreciate the steps undertaken and they embrace the CFTA and the protocol, the phases of negotiation. But they also raise the challenges in terms of sensitization and awareness. How do we, they don't know what step have we undertaken with regard to rules of origin. What step have we undertaken in terms of tariff offer? I know the CFTA provides it provides and it recognizes the lakes, including EAC, and EAC has provided their tariff offer. But there are still some gray area that are not clear. In terms of EAC is at customs union. CFTA is like the first step. How do we harmonize that? The issue of multiplicity of our membership. We have a tripartite arrangement with COMESA and SADC. How are we going to fit into CFTA? What are the gains? How do we manage that? I mentioned about the issue of the issue of there is another challenge, the issue of trade information. What are the platform? How do we build confidence amongst ourselves? One of the challenges we have is the confidence build trust among the companies. There's that perception saying that the CFTA is for the big economic powers, name Egypt, South Africa with developing industries. What about SMEs? Where do we have the space for SMEs? What about our youth? What about our women who are doing business? What about the level of informality we have, which is growing now, given the effect of COVID? The level of informality is very high. NEPAD presented a paper last week. It is saying that COVID has pushed almost 70% of our business to informal. So what are the mechanisms to elevate and lift the informal sector to the formal sectors? What are those incentives, both tax and non-tax incentive? What are the capacity building agenda that we have for our firms, for our SMEs, in terms of taking advantage of continental free trade area? So during that survey we conducted with the UNECA, almost 53% of our firm that they are saying that if we are to benefit from CFTA, we need to ensure that we have a roadmap. We have a roadmap and a concrete roadmap in terms of how we are going to address NTBs. And their argument is clear, and they reveal that while the agreement is good, it is more process-driven, procedure-driven. It's not action-oriented. What are the sanction mechanisms? What are the enforcement mechanisms do we have in place to sanction those companies or those governments that have not complied? So do we have what are the safeguard mechanisms are there to protect the infant industries? So those are some of the gray areas that we need to continue to discuss and really see how we build a very strong and a competitive private sector across Africa. Quickly, as I mentioned, let me give you a quick initiative at the East African Business Council. Of course, our role and the mission is to promote sustainable private sector driven growth. And what we've done, we've engaged Exim Bank. We are going to establish what we call Mansa Depository, which is going to, where we're going to enroll some of the companies in the region, so that there is a due diligence done in terms of confidence building for all companies. We're also working with their payment system mechanism to ensure that the transaction costs that are related to payment or exporting goods are addressed. So there are a good initiative we are engaging in with Exim Bank in terms of raising awareness, in terms of rolling out different products, including payment mechanism, access to finance. So we are entering an agreement with Exim Bank to de-risk our region, to de-risk our investment, to de-risk our private sector, so that they are able to benefit from continental free trade area. Also, we've EABC is working with UNECA in terms of sensitizing our members to take a baby step approach from all the stages of the signing agreement to the current implementation status, which Prudence has presented. So we are rolling it across we have agreed on the work plan in terms of sensitizing our private sector so that they are able to benefit from CFTA. So those are some of the few initiatives that are in place. But overall, there is excitement in terms of agreement because the agreement should be private sector led and private sector driven. Again, the agreement should also continue to offer such enormous benefit to our region. With those few remarks, I want to thank you, Olivia, thank the moderator, thank my fellow panelists for excellent insight you've provided on the CFTA. Asantini, asante sana. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kalisa. That was very powerful information and really, really good information. I love how you really focus in on some of the industry sectors and some of the opportunities. My passion after Black-owned businesses is young entrepreneurs. So that is a very encouraging statistic. You said 23% of the youth have created their own employment. So I think that's a great sign for the future for East Africa, if so many people are starting to take their destiny in their own hands and creating their own jobs. So that's a great opportunity. So with that, we are concluded with our amazing speakers today. I know I have learned a great deal of information. We're getting ready to open it up for Q&A. I think I am going to call my partner in crime, Mr. Alonzo Abram, who's on here, in for the Q&A because we don't have any questions yet. So if we don't have any questions, Alonzo Abram, who is also a board member for the Africa Global Chamber of Commerce, is actually starting to do business in Africa. So I think that you might be a great part of this conversation. I know you're going to be doing closing remarks, but I would love to hear, I'm sure you've noted a question or two for these great panelists. I have a few, but yeah, we're opening up for Q&A. So please, at this moment, if you haven't done it yet, if you have some burning questions or even just commentary, make sure you leave the comments, but we have a Q&A at the bottom of here. You can include any specific questions that you have. And in the meantime, I know I have a few questions. The first will be to Your Excellency, Ms. Afcfta, and also Mr. Kalisa, who both heavily focus on the wanting to make sure that youth, women, and small and mid-sized businesses are included in the Afcfta's agenda. So I just wanted you all to speak. You spoke some on specific opportunities because I'm sure a lot of people that are, of our attendees fit that category. So I wanted you all to speak on just specific opportunities that you saw for women, youth, and smaller businesses to work in this area. I can turn it over to Your Excellency if you have any feedback, or if not, Mr. Kalisa.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Let me say that again, one of the key benefits, as I mentioned, the major beneficiary of this agreement is SMEs and mainly women and youth. When you look at as I said, COVID has had a devastating impact on our economies. But it has also taught us a lot in terms of digital innovations. So much of opportunity for youth lies under e-commerce. And I'm happy that in the phase 2 of CFTA negotiation, e-commerce is going to be weaved in as a key tool to support the youth and women. The same when you look at during the COVID, those women who are in the markets, who are in the smallholder farmers, those who would be able to survive, they were those that have embraced the digital platform, who could sell their products through that using their mobile phone, using the digital innovation. I've seen like in Kenya, they have rolled out a platform where women and youth can sell their products, and that is a big opportunity that we can see as a region in terms of rolling out e-commerce platform. When you look at the innovation that African young women, young men are doing, it's amazing. It's amazing. Everything they are doing is digital driven. Look at the mobile phone, like in Rwanda, that is being assembled. Look at what is happening in a number of our areas. So I see that, like now recently at one of our border, I think it's Busia and Maraba, they are looking at, they are creating what we call smart markets, where the women at the border, they will be selling to their counterparts across the border using digital or innovation, selling their product, it will be like an auction. So those are some of the innovative that products that are being put on the market. So I see a lot of opportunity. Then within East Africa, we do have what we call industries without smokestacks. These are industries that doesn't require a lot of energy, the traditional industries. So those are tourism. Tourism in East Africa has been registering a double-digit growth. Agribusiness, light manufacturing. When you look at the statistics, those are industries. Horticulture, export of fresh fruits, vegetables, cereals, they are dominated by women and youth. And that is where the opportunities are. They are not in those traditional industries. The opportunities are in light manufacturing. Go to Rwanda, look at what C&H Garments is doing. 90% of who are employed in that company, they are women, they are young people, fresh graduates. The same like in another country. When you look at the tourism platform, all these innovation across the region, they are led by women, by youth. So there's ample opportunities across the region. But what is required, like now the challenge, when I speak to some of them, the challenge is access to affordable finance. Finance has been one of the challenges. Second, access to information, trade information. Where is the information platform? How can we exchange information? What are our market opportunities? So we need to address those issues related to information asymmetry in order for us to optimize the benefits provided by CFTA.
That's great. That actually is a great follow-up to my second question, which was going to be about the financing. You mentioned, Mr. Kalisa, don't go off the screen just yet, because you mentioned something about patient capital and access to capital. So this, again, is open to everybody. Mr. Bahizi, you also mentioned, possibly some of the opportunities that you mentioned a lot of industries. And I wanted to talk about specifically with just U.S. businesses, possibly the access into capital, investing. So can you all, anyone just speak a little bit more on what U.S. businesses and specifically possibly Black-owned businesses can really do and the industries they should be investing in Africa? Oh, you are on mute, Mr. Kalisa.
Before Prudence, I did mention. Okay. Yes, I did mention like four regional value chain currently we are promoting. One, the pharmaceutical industry. When you look at 90% of our pharmaceutical products, medicine and others are imported, and yet the input to do that are within Africa. All these generic drugs, the inputs comes from Africa, but we import almost 90% of our pharmaceutical related products. That's one of the potential area we can attract a US investor to do. Look at the garments, textile industry. It's very potential. We grow cotton across the region. That's a potential area. I mentioned about the rollout of e-commerce platforms, the tools for rolling out to that, to women, to youth. That's an enormous opportunities. We are looking at the agribusiness sector. Currently, I didn't mention about it. EABC has entered into an agreement with World Food Program to ensure that instead of importing food, which we have, it's really a paradox. Why should we import food when we have even surplus? But we are now developing a kind of information systems to locate where there is surplus and where there is deficit. So that is the lack of information from the farmer to the consumer. We need to map out the entire value chain of agribusiness. The region like East Africa should be able to feed all other Africa in terms of food. We have a very conducive climatic condition, but the issue we've been having, how do we even support smallholder farmers? And I want to thank USAID, US government, They are doing a great work in terms of supporting smallholder farmers, in terms of addressing those gaps, mismatch from the farm to the market along the value chain. The storage facilities. We don't have sufficient storage facilities for our product. We need to address, like now I was with the new Secretary General, we are looking at how do we create a special lane in our borders for perishable products. They need to have a special lane to move quickly. Don't delay truck carrying pineapples, carrying fresh maize, because it is going to, they are going to get wasted at the border because of our procedures. So there's a lot of opportunities that we can exploit together, and I have a range of sectors that we can attract investors from the US to come and do business in East Africa. East Africa, it's a very dynamic region, dynamic with dynamic people. Generally, when you look at the African recent index from African Development Bank and UNECA, we've deepened the movement of people. One of our pillars that there is free movement of persons across the region. So when people move, even goods move. So we've tried to dismantle some of those barriers. Of course, we haven't reached at the level we want, but there is some positive progress that are visible and that can be noticed.
Oh, well, that was great information. Mr. Prudence, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add.
Yes, thank you very much. I think John Bosco has done justice to your question. There are a number of opportunities that we can look at when it comes to external investors. We know in Africa, money is very expensive. Capital is very expensive. The cost of borrowing in banks is very high. Any foreign investor can leverage on the cost of finance and bring in money, which is welcome. What we can do as a continent is to identify those opportunities, those sectors where the return on investment is going to be assured, and some of the key priority areas where we can develop regional and continental value chains have already been identified. I mentioned automotive industry, pharmaceuticals, agro-processing, textile, food. So there are many sectors where Africa stands to benefit when it comes to investing in those sectors. And the statistics have already shown that. What we just have to do is to ensure two things. One, we have to make sure that the rules, the national rules are conducive. And we also have to make sure that the quality of those products is at the standard, at international standards, so that they can compete with the like products that are imported. Because currently we are importing products which were already in surplus or which have potential to be produced on the continent. So that's what I can add on Kalisa's intervention. Thank you.
That was great. Alonzo, I don't know if you have any questions.
Actually, Mr. Prudence, he actually started touching on it a little bit when he started talking about the financing, access to capital. So again, thanks Kiana for the introduction of who I am. And I'm glad to be a part of this. And we'll talk about that a little later also. But when it comes to me, myself, I am the founder of A Project Global, which is a real estate brokerage and development company. So I've been in South Africa, and now I'm more focused on East Africa and specifically Ghana, right? And one thing that I'm noticing quickly, right, is the financing issue. So all across the world, we have affordable housing crisis, and we pretty much all know that. Now, I'm noticing, okay, it seems like it's easier for me to partner or JV with individuals or organizations and build homes for those of diaspora, those who want to buy those vacation homes because they have the money. But you have the problem of those who we could say that invest in poverty or lower class, that even if you build an affordable house, they still cannot afford it because of the financing. So it seemed like a long-term problem, right? And what my question was is that this the CFTA and the likes of those type of those involved in seeing this out. We know that through the more business that's being developed and more money that's coming from outside of the continent is going to help, right? But now, what is the focus on creating that affordable, the financing for affordable housing? How would that play a role? Because we talked about everything from like the automotive industry, how is a lot again, and I can see that you can produce those automobiles. I can see that, right? How about the financing when it comes to housing in communities?
I don't know if anyone wants to take that question.
Like might be a long-term.
Long-term, yeah.
Man.
Part of the 2063 plan.
Right.
Well, maybe we'll
Alonzo, can you repeat your question, please?
So for the most part, it's really simple. There's an issue, and I'm gonna say specifically in Ghana, right? Because that's what I do know. Those that's in the lower class in the poverty, right? Coming out of poverty. What is the long-term plan when creating financing? You know, in the United States, we can easily go to the bank and get a 5%, 6% loan. I know in Ghana it's 20-something%, right? And so right now we talked about the production of cars, right? We talked about the pharmaceutical industry, textile, things of that nature. I could see fast money coming in and quickly helping that. And I don't say necessarily quickly, but it's more faster than housing for those that can afford housing. What is the plan for that? Like, how is that going to come apart? How is it come into play? Within the CFTA, you know.
Mr. Prudence, can you respond to this question if you can?
Yes, I think the question of resource mobilization can be better answered by the private sector, because what we have been doing for now is that we are working with financial institutions, including Afcfta Bank, to establish what we call the Afcfta Adjustment Fund, which we're mainly focusing on addressing adverse effect of implementing the Afcfta agreement on countries' national treasuries. But when it comes to financing for bankable project, financing for investment, I would rather leave this to the private sector to see how private sector can best strategize to attract resources where they are, because we know it's not about a lack of capital. I think it's about the way the capital flows. Otherwise, if the private sector could strategize and come up with a formula where money can be channeled toward the continent, I think that can answer to the question that has been asked.
Yeah. Let me also attempt to respond to that question, Olivia. I think he raises an important question in terms of, and there are two aspects related to why it is very hard to access finance, why interest rate in Africa is a double digit, while in other countries a single digit. The issue is, one is the risk element. The risk element within the business, within the financial sector, in terms of how do you lend someone money when you don't have, it doesn't have collateral security. Everything, that's why I said it is impatient capital, because it is tied to collateral security. It does not. It is not tied to viability of the business, and that's where we are coming. We are coming up in terms of having insurance, having this program like MASA program, in terms of building confidence, doing due diligence, because it is one of the channels that we are going to de-risk. Once you are on that platform, you've been assessed, then it will be easier for banks to lend you money. But currently, as I mentioned, there is a gap. Generally, we call it in economics moral hazard. It's a moral hazard element, because there is no trust between the banks as well as the borrowers. How do we match the two? And that comes or emanates from what I call information asymmetry. There is no information about the client. You don't have the way to trace the borrower. Sometimes because you don't know where they're located. So having a platform, that's why I'm saying having a digital platform where the lenders can be able to say, John Bosco, we know him, he has a vibe business, you can locate him, then there will be no risk to lend and lend at a low interest rate and a long-term financing. So the trust and confidence building is very critical if we want to roll out the CFTA. So we need to create such a kind of platform, and I will be encouraging the viewers that once we launch this MASA program, I encourage a number of the viewers, the companies to register under that platform, because it is one of the viable channel in terms of accessing finance. Again, Afcfta Bank, they have a number of products for SMEs. Recently, MasterCard Foundation, they are rolling out a program targeting almost 20 million youth. So those are some of innovative products where youth women can access finance, and other businesses that are viable can access finance. So we need to do that kind of background checks, due diligence for companies, due diligence for SMEs, for them to de-risk and be able to access cheap funding. So the instruments are there. When you talk about banks, Stanbic, this week I had a discussion with KCB Bank in East Africa. They are saying, no, as long as you recommend some of the company, we can even lend them at 7 to 8% interest rate. As long as you are able to recommend this company, you know where they are, you can locate them, you have conducted due diligence, fiduciary risk of this company that you want to put on the market. So that is the homework on our side we need to do as Apex organization to recommend companies to get access to finance, both at the regional, at multinational level, and we can do that. It is in our means, it is in our hands. We can create a platform and satisfy companies to get a quicker and cheap access to finance, as long as we have good platforms.
If the moderator, if you allow me, also because I operate on the market as from a US working on the continent, the issue that Alonso raised very, very critical, is very important. If you don't have access to finance, how do you, you build, how do you promote your projects, how you get things done? I think we need competitiveness, what you mentioned about competitiveness. We need to bring more, maybe engage the African diaspora, right? We have over 200 million diaspora out of Africa. However, I don't think we have a coordination at the African Union level or other government levels to really to mobilize diaspora to come back to invest and also to create those financial institutions that we really need. So really maybe Prudence will help me, or you who are on the ground. What programs or policies are you putting into place within the framework of Afcfta to re-engage the diaspora? So if the diaspora is really engaged, we will see some of issues will be addressed. I can take an example, take Kiana, Alonso, both of them are exploring to come to invest or do business on the continent. How are you attracting them? How do you make them, when they come, they feel welcome, they feel they are truly Africans, right? That's raised issues of free movement for people, right? And when we talk about the free, if you can't move from one country to the other country to access that market to trade, is gonna be difficult, right? The free movement of people, I'm not sure how the Afcfta is addressing that issue. How now, not only those on the continent, you engage some of us who are outside of the continent to be really engaged within this framework of Afcfta is going to be critical. So I just want to hear maybe from Your Excellency, if she's here, Prudence or anyone who can see, how do you really intend to engage the diaspora in this framework of Afcfta? That will be number one. Number two, on sensitization and awareness, we want to be involved in, I know some of you have several partners within Afcfta Secretariat. How do you intend now, once you really are sensitizing, you are raising awareness of this piece, how are some of us in diaspora can be really involved in this process? Those are two questions really, even if it was a comment, I want also to have your views on that.
Let me come in before you give the floor to Her Excellency and to Prudence on financial issue, if you allow me, Mr. President. I think from our side here that it's a very critical issue that maybe we can sit down next time to discuss, inviting Afcfta Bank, inviting ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, and the CFTA Secretariat to discuss on that specific issue, because we need a vehicle to finance this business opportunity under CFTA. But that's what is one side. Second side, let me share with you our experience at FEWASI, what we did in the past. That can be an experience to support the CFTA Secretariat on investing in West Africa. In the previous speech, when we were talking about creating joint venture, we are inviting you from diaspora to come to join us under an SPV, special purpose vehicle, that we can create on each specific product or each specific project. Let us take, for example, pharmaceutical industry. We want to create pharmaceutical industry. What we do is that we create that SPV as a public-private program where the government representing, for example, West Africa, ABID, represent ECOWAS, all the governments. We at FEWASI will represent private sector, and we go and identify a key technical partner that come in. We form this platform to fund the feasibility study, to get all the authorization to work in that specific area. Then when the SPV finishes work, we transmitted the SPV in a reliable company that can take over. And that's why we did it, to create EcoBank. And it's work. Everybody knows that the EcoBank is our bank, is an FEWASI initiative. We did the same with ASKY in partnership with Ethiopian Airlines. Same thing we are trying to do in Sea-Link. So it's a platform that we put in place in West Africa that we can use with you in diaspora. When we are inviting that we have information, we have a key way to invest in all Africa. Whatever you create in West Africa, you got the recognition as a community enterprises. Your product can access any market. When we take it at the continental level, and we got the head of state support to have the African community enterprises, that will help to finance some products. By the time bankers discover that it's time for them to change their way of financing products. You cannot go to the bank and get 2 digits for your products, while in Europe you have 1 digit. So what we have to do now is to make a bank to recognize that we need a new specific model of financing products. But before getting there, we have to sit down as private sector under the leadership of the CFTA Secretariat and brainstorming and see what can we put in place quickly to finance products to get to the successful objective of CFTA. Thank you very much. Over to you, Kina.
Prudence, I want to hear from you about engagement of diaspora within the framework of Afcfta.
Yes, that's a very important question, Olivier. We are in the process of developing a structure for the Afcfta secretariat. And we have a number of stakeholders at heart when we draw that structure. We have the women in trade, we have the young people in trade, we have African living in diaspora at heart. So we finalize that structure, we should make sure that a desk will be dedicated to regular interaction with the people in diaspora, just on daily basis. But in terms of engagement in general and awareness creation, we have a number of programs which are already designed to bring the diaspora on board. We have the Afcfta Business Forum, where we make sure that we reach out to all potential and actual investors on the continent, and those from within the continent and those from outside the continent. And we always make a call to Africans in diaspora to come and participate in those fora, because that's where they come in touch, they come to get in touch with the reality, they see the potential for the continent. And we have even instituted one intra-African trade fair. It has happened for the first time in 2018. The second edition is happening this year in November. And that intra-African trade fair is also aimed at attracting investors from all over the world, but also showcasing what the continent is offering in terms of investment opportunities. So we will not stop there. We have a business, a forum for women in business. We have to institute a forum for youth. So we try to make sure that we institute different fora where different stakeholders will have to be interacting on daily basis, on regular basis. I hope we can also institute the one for people in diaspora once the desk is established within the secretariat. With regard to ensuring free movement of persons, this is not a direct mandate of the Afcfta, but we make sure that we work in tandem with other departments at African Union, which are in charge of ensuring free movement of persons on the continent. There is a department on political affairs, which is in charge of that file on free movement. A protocol on free movement of persons, the right of establishment and right of residence has been negotiated and concluded. We are just waiting for countries to ratify the agreement so that it can enter into force. But within the Afcfta legal instrument, there are a number of provisions that can assist when it comes to facilitating movement of business persons. The protocol on trading services has provision to facilitate investors who are coming to invest in Africa physically. It has provision for the movement of service providers across the continent. And I think we can use some of those provisions to also facilitate Africans in diaspora. We have in mind that we can also introduce Afcfta visa. And Afcfta visa, once introduced, it can be issued to whoever is going to play a role in the implementation, significant role in the implementation of the Afcfta. So I think that visa can also be a good capital for Africans in diaspora who want to come and do their business on the continent without hindrances, because we know those challenges, but we can still work around with people in diaspora and make sure that we address them through a number of programs that we are able to put in place and convince member states to implement.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
And that was an amazing question. It really is, like you said, engaging the overall diaspora, because we're here to help. Like you said, it should be a unified vision on rebuilding Africa. And one of the things that I was going to ask a question about is just actually making sure that when outside people, as we, reintroduce ourselves to Africa, have that unified vision. So anything that we're building is building towards a better Africa and not just self-serving, which is going to be an important aspect of it. I know I will be conscious of everyone's time, and Alonzo has to close us out. We do have a question I want to take really quickly from one of our attendees, and Afcfta asks, with the Afcfta entering into force, what happens to other regional economic communities and trading arrangements in both the short and long term, especially in the East Africa area, where you have many overlapping memberships?
Yeah, thanks, Baba, thanks for, again, I want to thank someone who has raised that question, that what happens with CFTA. But I want to highlight that CFTA did consider that the lakes are building blocks for CFTA. And building blocks in the sense that, like East Africa, we are not joining the CFTA as an individual country. We go there as a bloc. So it is provided in the treaty, in the CFTA framework, that regional economic communities should be the anchor of the CFTA. So I don't see any kind of duplication in terms of lake joining the CFTA. And it is also provided within the protocol and within the treaty. There is a principle called a key principle that the CFTA should enhance and strengthen the regional economic communities. So that is provided for. So there is no divergence. It is provided for under the CFTA framework that lakes need to be respected. That's why I say that we, like EAC, our tariff offer, it is as a EAC, not as a single country. So that's what I can say. It is part of the guiding principle for CFTA. So there is no fear, there is no worry about that. They are provided for under the framework.
Okay, that was a great response. On that note, I am going to open up for closing remarks. I'll keep my commentary to myself outside of this. Thanking you, Olivier, for allowing me to be a part of this discussion. I think it's important to have everyone engaged from different areas because this really helps to move the agenda forward. So I thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. I learned a lot. I think it was a lot of great information. But again, I will let Mr. Alonzo Abram close us out with closing remarks and kind of recap all of this great information, ideas, opportunities that we've received. Yes. Alonzo?
Yes. Well, first, I want to thank the speakers, Mr. Prudence, Her Excellency, the Ambassador, Mr. Aminu, I hope I said that correctly, and Mr. Kalisa. And also our moderator, my partner, Cran. Thank you for being here. You make it all wonderful all the time. And then our president and visionary leader, Mr. Olivier Kamanzi. It was extremely important that this meeting, this summit had happened because a lot of great information, and you could see the importance of the CFTA, and you could see the way that it's going after fighting for 100 years to even get something in writing or introduced in 2018 and actually get implemented at this point. It was extremely motivational even for myself, let alone I can only imagine for those that's on the continent. And when you realize that how important it is, how you have so much land, and this alone could bring access food, it could reduce the taxes and the cost of food, reduce the poverty, increase the growth, some of the things like Mr. Prudence was saying. And it was also important that how when you bring the people out of poverty, the more things that they're able to do. And just like with Her Excellency, how she spoke about exporting 2 years duty-free, that's important to us who say in the diaspora. This type of information that we need to know. And how do we get access to that type of information? When you know those type of things, you can actually encourage those to come to the continent and help also play our part in our role in actually building the continent. And the intra business itself, having the opportunity to be a part of that and even witnesses, that's history. So you saying that you can do business from South Africa to West, from West to East. Those that's on the ground, that is huge, and it's a vast amount of people who don't even know how huge that really is. So to be able to have this conversation, people like me and Kiana, we'll connect with other like-minded people here, and we can give them that education that we just received and get them motivated, because there's a lot of us that's wondering, how do we get on the continent? What do we do? So I know Kiana as well as myself is, I forget someone who spoke about roles. He spoke about roles, I think it was the gentleman from East Africa. So, was it West Africa? When you're talking about roles, is okay, what is Kiana's role now? Now that we know this, right? What is my role? You guys chose you guys' role. So now our roles, we're gonna play it on our end, right? And that's actually, we like to say we don't talk, we walk it, right? So even with myself, I've been back to the continent twice. I'll be there hopefully 2 more times before the year out, you know, and right now it's like our president told us, do your education, see what's going on. There's so many organizations, there's so many opportunities. Like I was just taking notes of, you know, like the ECOWA, the XM Bank, you know, the USDA, how is those organizations working with the continent? And then now we know what resources we have. So like, once again, well, thank you guys, and just for even being here today, speaking about this, because there's a lot of opportunities, like you said, like you guys said, from what you say, agriculture, textile, apparels, animals. There's so many potential for everybody to get involved in to help the great continent grow. So once again, appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And really, I want to also say thank you, Olivia. Thank you, our moderator, Baba. It has been excellent. All the panelists, have a good day. Those in East Africa, have a great evening.
Thank you all. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you. We hope to meet you again. We continue this conversation as we move forward. This is just a beginning. As we implement Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we want a collaboration, broad collaboration. We make sure diaspora is involved in the process all the way, because connecting diaspora and those on the continent is going to be critical for the success of this framework of this instrument for African economic integration. Thank you so much.